and welcome to the Matt Lagore Show. I'm your host, Matt Lagore. So today we're going to be talking about coaching. I think every one of us in our life have experienced a coach at some level or another. Now, when we were children, our first coaches were our parents. Our parents were the ones who taught us to behave, who taught us the proper etiquette, who taught us to walk. They coached us along as children to adulthood. And in many of us, we may have had other coaches, say in school, in athletics or acting or voice coaches. And later in life, you get a business coach. And you may even get a life coach. And the job of that coach is to bring the best out of you, not to yell at you and not to get you to do things faster, better, stop making mistakes. They're there to bring the best out of you. See, we all make mistakes and we might not be able to see them. And some of us, maybe we're doing something right and we don't know it, so we don't continue to do it. We have great examples of coaching in the New England area. We have Bill Belichick, Red Auerbach, Terry Francona, Casey Jones, and the list goes on. We also have examples of bad coaches. Growing up in the 70s and 80s, I watched New England teams fail miserably from bad coaching. It was horrible. So when we got great coaching, I knew the difference right away. You look at Belichick, you say, well, what made him great? Was it Tom Brady? Was it the 6 championships? Was it perennial domination? Yeah, those things all played into it. But what was the thing that made it best? Was he got the best out of his players. He got the best out of Tom Brady. And Tom Brady brought the best out in Bill Belichick. So one other thing about coaching is understanding the game. You need to understand what it takes to win. It's not just scoring the most points, which it is, but how do you get those points? How do you create a strategy? So my guest today is the head coach of the girls track and field team in North Reading High School, Coach Pintz, who has several different names, all equally hard to pronounce and even harder to spell. But I am going to do my best right now and welcome Sartorius Pintsopoulos, or Sadidi, or Coach Pintz. Your choice. And I'm not going to try and spell any of them. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure, yeah, and thank you for that intro. When I hear coaches' names like that in a show that I'm invited to, it's...
We couldn't get Belichick. He was first on the list, you were second. So anyway, go ahead.
So my name is Satidi Pintsopoulos. Again, like Matt says, I go by many names, many abbreviations. My full name is Sartorius Pintsopoulos. I'm a North Reading High School graduate. Actually grew up in town. I moved here with my family in the mid-80s, 1986, 87. 2001 graduate of the high school. Mm-hmm. Came back to teach and coach in 2006, about 5 years after. I went to college at Stonehill College, got my bachelor's degree. Came back, I teach world history, I teach economics, and I'm the girls track and field coach, both indoor and outdoor. So I have a lot of pride in North Reading. I've lived here for most of my life. In my adult life, I moved to Wilmington. That's where I'm a resident now. But I've been a teacher and coach here. This is my 18th year.
18 years, wow, the time goes by fast. So in that time, have you been the track and field coach the whole time?
Yes, I volunteered spring of 2006 out of college. I had a job at Brown Brothers Harriman for about 8 or 9 months, just under a year. I left that job, was looking for different options. I was volunteering and met some teachers that used to teach me at the high school. And they kind of persuaded or told me to look into the profession. I never really thought about teaching at the high school or even collegiate level. So I volunteered in 2006, and then I was hired later that summer going into the fall as a teacher. And the head coach position opened up that year, my first year teaching. Mm-hmm. And I was fortunate enough to be selected to coach the team, and we won a state title that year, my first year.
And what year was that?
That was 2007 in the spring.
And how many titles have you won since then?
Outdoor, we're at 7.
Yeah.
And indoor 3, so 10 titles between indoor and outdoor state championships.
I'd say that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah. The reason that I wanted to talk to you and interview you was because I watch you coach the girls, mm-hmm. and what I see in your coaching is I see the kids like really are enjoying it. They're having a good time. Like, and they're like tight. Their camaraderie is tight.
Yes.
All right. And that comes down from you that they can have that kind of camaraderie. But I also see them have like confidence in themselves. So when you look at an athlete, I mean, it's not all about first place. Like to win an event, it's not like, oh, everyone needs to get first place, so we win. It's understanding the strategy, right?
Yes.
More than just like, if you get a couple of great athletes, you're going to get some first place, but third place counts too.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think you hit on a couple of things there. The confidence is key. At the end of the day, we love winning. I mean, we say all the time, winning is fun. Being successful makes you want to keep working at the event or your job or whatever it may be in life. But the confidence is key. I mean, I have athletes who have gone on to compete at the D1 level and continue outside of college and compete. And I've had others that have been at the junior varsity level all 4 years. Everyone's there for different reasons. For some it's social, for some it's scholarship oriented, for some it's wanting to get fit, be in shape, get some sunshine, whatever it may be. But I can honestly say that every athlete that comes through our program leaves more confident. I think that's the key to sport. It's regardless of the sport you coach or work at, I see these young girls come to the high school, 14, 15-year-old freshmen and leave as, confident student athletes, and that's what we want out of them. But yeah, the strategy to winning, that's a whole nother level. I always tell students, even when I was in high school, I remember my teammates saying when I graduated, our team wouldn't be good anymore.
Yeah.
And I told them, I'm only 5 points. I was undefeated in the 100 meters. But that's only 5 points. The second and third place pick up 3 and 1. So a winner in an event, if the other team gets second and third, you only gain a point. And no matter if you win by a quarter of a second or 10 minutes, you only get 5 points. So there is a strategy, like you said. I think as a team, as a program, we always try to get first and second. 8 points for us, 1 for them.
Yeah.
There's more math to it too. There's a lot of nuances with it, but relays get you 5 points. Not winning the relay gets you 0 points.
Yeah.
Big invitationals score differently. They don't do 5-3-1. They do 10-8-6, 4-2-1. So I have to crunch numbers. I always joke that coaching track is a lot of physics, anatomy, biomechanics, but then math. It's just a lot of numbers and statistics and playing out different options. Like what would happen if this happened? What would happen if this happened? And I do best case, worst case scenarios, and if the variance is too large, I don't take that risk. I don't take that gamble.
So even during a meet, you'll switch things up.
You're not allowed to switch up your roster.
Yeah.
When you submit a roster before the start of the meet, you have to stick with it. The only meet that you're technically allowed to switch things up, and that's the one we like to call the most coached event, is the state relay championship. The rule is every athlete there can do up to 3 events, but the rosters don't have to be set because it's such a long day. It's an 8-hour event. Some athletes may do 1 event and then maybe can't compete. Maybe they're injured, maybe they're dehydrated, maybe they're coming off a stomach virus. So you're allowed to make roster changes on the fly. But a lot of the work in the roster is for 99% of the meets outside of that one. It's done beforehand. So we have a meet on Wednesday against Pentucket. I have to work on that roster the week leading up to think about best case scenario breakdown, because when we're there and I submit the roster,
it's set no matter what happens.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you're also a history teacher?
Yes.
All right. And so do you find like, I've noticed that, I never knew this until my wife became a teacher, but the teachers are the coaches.
Yes.
All right. For the most part, right?
Yeah, I think it's the hours. Currently in North Reading High School, we go from 8:30 to 3. Practices start 3:30. It's hard finding the 9 to 5ers be available for coaching. Maybe that's changed recently. I haven't really looked into it across different districts, but with people being able to work from home, are other adults more willing and able to coach these days? But historically, it's been teachers, and I think administrations and athletic directors like to have people in the building, even if not the entire staff is, at least the head coach, because then you're just in communication with them through the day. It's easier. We get meets canceled the middle of the day. How are you going to communicate with someone off site that has a job and doesn't have access to their phone or email, it tends to be teachers. Yeah,
So it's being teacher helping a coach?
absolutely.
Because you get to see them during the day too, right? You
Absolutely.
see your students.
Yeah, you see their demeanor. You can tell, how they're feeling that day. And even the majority of my athletes, I don't teach. If I had to crunch numbers off the top of my head, I have 50 girls on the team. Maybe I teach 10 to 20, not nowhere near half. And that's just depending on the year. But this year, that's where I'm at. But you see them walking the halls. You see them, in the cafeteria. So you can talk to them if you did need to make those roster changes before heading to the meet.
Yeah.
Having access to them and communicating throughout the day is useful.
So obviously your day job is teaching.
Yes.
And your part-time job would be coaching.
Absolutely.
But it does take a lot of time, right?
Oh yeah, it takes up a lot.
And you have a family.
Yes.
How many kids do you have?
So I have 2 children. I have
Yeah.
a daughter, Isla, who's going to be 3 next month, so May 21st, and then my son Theo just turned a year. And
Congratulations.
My wife Julie, obviously, picking up a lot of the slack when I am coaching and the teaching. She's a teacher as well, so our day jobs, our careers, our schedule is almost exactly the same. But my coaching does keep me away from family quite often.
Yeah. So your wife's very generous that way with you. So do you feel like when you're coaching, like you obviously get a lot of joy out of it, right?
Absolutely.
Because you wouldn't do it if you didn't.
No.
And you wouldn't put the time in. I mean, the thing I see as a father of a student athlete on your team is that, you give a lot to the kids. And you like my daughter, when she started in track, the only reason we put her in track is because we wanted to keep her active. We wanted to have her do something. We didn't know she was going to be good at it. We just said, let her do it. But she's changed as a person.
Absolutely.
Over the last 3 years. Obviously, she's matured just from time, right? But the athleticism and the team and the coaches and the players all have affected her because the influence has been extremely positive on her. So, do you work on creating an atmosphere?
Yes, I mean track to us, we love it. We can't get enough of it. If we're passionate about it, and I say we, and I mean the entire coaching staff and the vast majority of the student athletes. I mean, there may be a couple of students that don't buy in and don't sign up again. It's like a lot of things. You try it out, and I've had athletes even tell me halfway through the season, I don't know if it's for me, and I always try to tell them, you signed up for something, stick it out. I think it's good to teach them about commitment, and as long as there's no extenuating circumstances, family issues, things like that, to quit. But if it's just, I'm not getting better, I just tell them to be patient, wait it out, see what happens. But in general, if we don't create a fun atmosphere, it's sport. No one's going to sign up. And I think our numbers have always been very high. I mean, we're a school of a little over 600 students, so if over 100 of them, between the boys and the girls team, that's how many we have on the team, are doing track, I think that's very indicative of the fun and the atmosphere that we bring. Not just your daughter, all of those athletes, their major friendships are on the team, their experiences are similar. Sometimes the stuff they'll remember isn't just winning this meet or getting this medal. It's the bus ride to a meet. We have meets. We have a meet next weekend in Seekonk. I always joke, we have to drive into Rhode Island to get to the track because it's right on the border. And just the experience of that bus ride, or the time in between events. If the audience hasn't been to a track meet, it could be a several-hour event, and depending on your athletes, some of them only compete for a total of 1 minute. 10 seconds here, 20 seconds there, and a couple of jumps or a couple of throws, and then the rest of it is the preparation, the warming up, the cooling down, and then the social aspect and keeping your mental focus. We do a lot of visualization and mental preparation for things. Confidence is key. We tell them all the time.
That's the thing I see is that these girls, I don't see the boys, but I see the girls.
Sure.
I watch them get themselves prepared for their event, and they go right out. See them in the middle of the field, warming up, talking to each other, helping each other. I'm impressed with that. Because that the everything leading up to winning is all the stuff nobody sees,
Yes.
and kind of don't really want to do it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
isn't the fun part getting out there and running, right? But if you don't do the stuff in between, you're never going to get there.
Absolutely.
So you were you like that? Were you a very good preparer? Did you do the little things?
Yeah, I mean, the sport has certainly changed a lot. You mentioned sports teams you watched in the 70s and 80s. I was in high school in the late 90s, and college, I graduated 05. The science behind it, the footwear, the apparel, it's all different. There are things that I did back then I would never do now. I think the mantra, even leading into, right around when I was in college, was do extra, put in more work, do it until you throw up. We've changed that. There's a less is more mentality. I come into practices with a goal in mind. These aren't things I've made up. Some of the best coaches or teachers, I say, are thieves. You're online, you're learning, you're going to clinics, and I can.
Originality is concealing your source.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And the kids, the girls, they always think things I say are like my quotes, and they like write them down. And there's like a big running joke about the things I say. I go, yeah, you're right. I don't know if any of it is original, but
it isn't. None of it's original. Someone thought of it a long time ago. They're just dead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But yeah, the preparation that they put in, it is indicative. I did similar things. I knew that the work I put in the summer and the fall was how I was going to win in the winter and the spring. I tell them that all the time. Our seasons are very short. Even if you're a state caliber athlete, you're going for 2.5 to 3 months, and that's not enough time to get good. If you're going to be a champion or a state level athlete in indoor or outdoor track, you're doing preseason training throughout the summer and the fall. It's the only way you can succeed. I went from a JV athlete freshman year to just qualifying for state sophomore year to being undefeated in the league my junior year. That's just me. I'm not here to talk about me as an athlete, but a lot of the athletes I coach are very similar. It's, they come in, they get exposed to it, and as long as they put in the commitment and they put in the work, they see the dividends. And I think your point about the preparation at the meet, it's really true. Again, this isn't mine, stole it from somewhere, but I once heard someone say that, the meets, you go to the meets to just pick up your medals. You don't win the medals there. And I was like, that's interesting. I never really thought of that.
Yeah.
Because it's not to say that you just show up, you win. The girls know that. You have to go in, you have to perform, you need to warm up. You can't just assume the medal's going to come to you. But the work to get that medal has been done. I mean, the 12 weeks of training going into states, if you show up at the state meet healthy, prepared, and focused, and you do what you need to do, and you execute, and you're confident, good things will happen.
Yeah. I look at like pictures of like Jim Thorpe. You've heard of him. He like won gold medals like wearing 2 different shoes. They were like leather and they had like lousy metal spikes on them. And players like, say someone like Larry Bird, he was a phenomenal athlete, but he only lasted like 11 years. Where someone like LeBron, he's 21 years in the league, and he's still playing at a high level. But one of the things they say is that he gets his rest, he has his program, he doesn't overdo it. They even limit now like minutes in a game for some of these guys to extend their career, So I think that's kind of what you were alluding to, is where like you don't make the girls go out there and just, I want 10 laps, I want 50 push-ups,
Gasser, as they used to call it in football. Just run back and forth. That's how you create toughness, and it's very scientific now. Top end speed can only be done on a well-rested body. So when we do tests in practice to see where their top end speed is, their intervals are short. It's 30-meter sprints, as hard as they can. With relaxed effort. It's hard to explain it sometimes. You'd be like, all right, as hard as I can. You running them to the ground? No, it just means put in max effort. But then they'll get a 10-minute break and then do it again, and then 10-minute break. There's never give me more, don't rest, don't have water. The rest is key.
Yeah, when you look at like from the 60s and stuff, like football coaches, what they did.
I went through it too in the 90s.
Yeah.
It's like
it used to just be drink your protein shake and go out there and run, right? So it's a lot different. So would you say that this is your home for the duration, or have you ever thought about maybe when the kids get older doing some different coaching?
I never thought about doing anything else really until pretty recently. Obviously, having a family makes the schedule difficult, but I don't necessarily see myself leaving. I'm certainly not going to leave North Reading and coach at another high school.
Yeah.
You know, I have ties to North Reading. I love this town. I grew up in this town. But years back, there were opportunities to coach collegiately, and you know, I crunched numbers. It really wasn't worth it. You know, if you go to college and you coach, that's a full-time job. You know,
Yeah.
my job is being a teacher. The coaching is extra. It's a stipend. And you know, most college programs just don't pay enough to sustain a lifestyle.
Yeah.
That's just how it is. It's not a high-paying profession or sport for that matter, track and field, compared to maybe a Division I football or basketball.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but having children has made coaching difficult. I think the past couple of years have been harder years for me to do it well. We're still winning, we're still succeeding, but maybe the stress levels are higher. My free time is less. So I sometimes consider stepping down in the future. You know, maybe getting involved in the overseeing of track at the state level. The Mass State Track Coaches Association has a group of guys and group of coaches that directs meets.
Yeah. Do you do that now? Do you do any of that now? Because I see some of the meets you seem to be doing a lot of directing out there.
Well, I was doing the MSTCA stuff the past couple of indoor seasons, but I did back down this year. What ends up happening as a track coach, and it's kind of the behind the scenes you see, when we host a meet, I'm a coach, but I'm a meet director. Sometimes I'm clerking the meet, which is making sure people are at the right events and in the right lanes. Sometimes I'm working the finish line on the computer. I need to spend 2 to 3 hours setting up the facility for the meet. These are things not put into writing, but if you want to have a successful meet, those things need to happen. It's the things behind the scenes people don't see. It happens in teaching too. You know,
How big is your staff? Because you have I see several other coaches. I see people running the computer, doing the timing.
Yep. The coaching staff, there are 6 of us. What we do is we combine both the boys and the girls staff so that the entirety of the team, boys and girls, has 6 coaches. I personally, as a head coach, have 1.5 assistants. So 1 full-time, 1 half-time. I couldn't run a program with that. So I work with the boys head coach and his 1.5 assistant, 6 people. A couple of them are part-time. And we coach all the events. We have 2 throws coaches, a distance coach, a hurdles coach, and a high jump coach. And then my focus area is the sprints, the long jump, triple jump, and pole vault. And I work with the high jump coach and the hurdles coach in that area, the 3.
Yeah, because I see that there's a lot of interaction within the coaches and the coaching staff. They all seem to very much emulate you, or you emulate them. I don't want to take anything away from them, but they're loved. They're loved.
Absolutely.
You know, and they care. I can tell they care. The coaches come up to me and express something about my daughter, and I can tell it's from a genuine place because there's nothing to gain from being nice to me. You know, I'm saying that it doesn't change anything. Yeah. So, and the reason I say that is because I have a friend who was a high school athlete, a good high school athlete, and her coach was not really very good. Like he didn't understand. It was his job. He did probably the best he could, but she got injured. He didn't handle it right, and she still has resentment over it because she feels like she could have done better. Maybe she could have gone further, but her coach was very ineffective.
Yeah.
So I want you to know that I see that in you, that your coaching staff's very effective.
No, I appreciate
and that's not an easy thing to do. Just because you're a head coach doesn't mean you love it. Doesn't mean you're doing the best job.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just in the state of Massachusetts, again, I've directed meets. There were meets indoors where there would be 5,000 athletes at it and 300 coaches. So I've seen many programs and I see a range. I mean, I think what we do is amazing. And, being a confident person, I tell our staff and our athletes all the time, we're the best. North Reading's got the best staff. We have the best athletes. We have the hardest workers. We have the most committed athletes. But there are a lot of great staffs in the state. But yeah, I think the norm is not. It's hard to commit yourself to coaching high school athletics. No one's in it for the money. I mean, there's no school or town that is making coaching a full-time gig. It's
Right.
never going to be.
You don't get money for a championship.
No, exactly.
You're lucky
Yes.
if you get new signs at the entrance of the town, which, by the way, we did.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think that you have a lot to do with that because the girls won and the
Yeah.
boys won too, right? Last year.
Yeah, the boys won it two springs ago now.
Yeah. So they replaced the signs, home of the champions.
No, and those are the things. You have to advocate for the sport for sure. I think when I took over as the girls' head coach, it was at a time where we had state titles in a couple of sports, but hadn't seen it in track before, obviously, and it's kind of become expected of us, and it puts a lot of pressure on myself as a coach, but also the athletes, those juniors and seniors especially. They feel like they're part of something, they're part of a legacy, and they don't want to disappoint.
Yeah, and winning kind of begets winning.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like in an atmosphere of winning. Last year, the boys football team, they won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I know they lost a lot of good players, but they still competed this year.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
They didn't go to the Super Bowl again, but they competed at a high level in the division. So it seems to me like for a small school like North Reading, there's a good positive atmosphere in the athletics. And,
Yes.
that's what builds like a career for an individual is how well do they work with a team, right? And most people are not going to become a professional athlete. It's unlikely that even one athlete out of all the teams in North Reading is going to become a professional athlete.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right? So what is it? The benefits for their future, and I think you do a really great job with that, instilling the confidence in your athletes and making them better people. I don't know. I'm not there in the weeds of it, but I haven't seen one troublemaker.
No, I think that's a good point. I think we always joke around about this, but sometimes the culture and the type of student that comes out begets that culture. I think track and field historically has always fostered a hardworking student athlete, not a troublemaker, as you say. And I've taught and coached hundreds of kids over the last 18 years, and I think the kids who come out for sports tend to be focused, but I think we're very lucky and very fortunate in track and field. We get some of the higher level students.
Would you say that within the team there's some policing, like amongst the leaders and of the student athletes?
There has to be.
Yeah. Because I kind of see that. Like my daughter came in when she was a freshman, but the seniors befriended her. And I was like, that is really nice. Like they took this young athlete under their wing and they befriended her. I also think they instilled things in her unknowingly, but they created a good solid atmosphere. And I always say to my daughter, like, you should do the same now for these underclassmen. They did it for you, you need to do it for them.
Oh, paid for it. Exactly. She's a junior now. I mean, next year is her senior year. Her and her classmates in that grade, it's their time to lead. For sure, it is.
Yeah, and I can see it. Like, there would be times she'd be like, oh, I don't know. And I'm like, look, it's just, I'm not saying you have to do it, but I know you can do it. And I see her doing it. I see her doing it. So that's, an example of good coaching and the leadership from the top coming down. So I want to commend you on the great job you do with the girls team and as a teacher and an overall person. You're a very nice man. And good luck with your family.
Thank you, yes.
All right. And thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
Right.
All right. Well, I want to thank you for watching another episode of the Matt Lagore Show, and we'll see you on the next one.